everybody. Hey, we're live from Facebook, Clint Speaks, and we're live from YouTube as well as Twitch. So, again, good evening, everybody. I hope everybody has had a great week so far, ever since last week, especially since last week, rather. Um, but this week, I hope everybody's been doing well. Let's see, we've got one on. Um, if you don't mind, whoever you are, if you don't mind, let me know if you can hear me. If you don't mind, y'all, we just gonna have a little Black History tonight, man. And I'm not gonna hold you long, I promise, because I'm here in Memphis, man, and it started raining, so sometimes we lose power. So, um, but good evening, everybody. Okay. Wow. Awesome. All right. Y'all, if you would, whoever, if you would, just let me know if you can hear me. We'll be discussing a little Black history. Um, Respectfully, I'm not gonna discuss a little Black history. Sorry about that. But either way, we're gonna. I guess you can hear me. I heard myself, so I'm just gonna go ahead and get started because I'm gonna end earlier than what I've normally ended. So, we're gonna discuss some Black history. Last week we were talking about. I believe we were discussing how important we are as people, as Black people. Trying to get away from always having to explain myself as far as, and nobody's asking me to, so let me put that out there, but explaining myself as far as, hey, we're not racist. Hey, we don't have anything against, you know, the LGBT. I honestly can't remember the alphabets, but I mean, I'm saying that respectfully. So, nothing against that. I just want everybody to respect who I am, like I respect them. Um, but with that being said, last week we were just talking about us as a culture, Black culture. It kind of gets tiresome how we, especially in the wake of the Tyree Nichols thing and that situation, how we, hey dear, hey baby, hey love. So it just gets kind of tiring how we as Black people, whether you recognize yourself as Black, African American, um, uh, we always have this issue with each other. And we were discussing that last week. Well, I just kind of want to take a lighter note this week. There's been some interesting things I was looking at as far as Black history that'll make you proud, man. I'll say that, let me start off by saying this. Back in I believe it's 98, I went to Invention Submission Corporation with an invention. I still have that idea. I just hadn't pushed it. Excuse me. And I just didn't like how, because I was serious about it, man. And they, asked for a fee to get started, gave that, and then it turned into another fee, gave that, and then it turned into another, and that's when I stopped. I was already kind of thrown because when I brought the idea to them, which I was real hesitant about, they pitched another idea from that. It was a lady. I'm not going to call her name. I still remember her name after all of these years. And it was like she had kind of took my idea and tried to morph it into something else. And I'm like, over the years, I was thinking, man, I've seen my invention in cars, and I'm like, did she just throw me off by giving me some other type of idea and then using my original idea? So it was heartbreaking, man. But I said that to say this: there's been a lot of inventions that we don't know about, um, that came from us, black people, and it'll make you proud, man. So I'm just gonna ask you, for those that are watching, just ask you. It's kind of like a trivia, but I know I can't hear you. I don't mind you chiming in, and I want you to chime in. So, but there are some things that'll make you proud, man, and that I didn't know of, and that I forgot about. Like, for instance, the potato chip. Interesting story, man. I mean, it's stuff like that. Like when we think about Black history, we think about the Harriet Tubmans, and which we should. Harriet Tubman, um, born into slavery, and one that in her mind never really bought into slavery, never really, just held on to that idea of slavery. Like, okay, I know I'm a slave and I'm going to die a slave. She didn't, that wasn't her thing. We all know her story, but the most interesting part of Harriet Tubman's story was this quote that she said. I could have freed, this is what she said. And I hope I'm not misquoting, but she said, I could have freed thousands or hundreds of more slaves had they not known that they were slaves. I could have freed a lot of more slaves had they not known that they were slaves. So some just were not with trying to free themselves. This is what I was born into. Fear may have gripped them. I believe some just kind of adapted to that environment, but she wasn't one to do it. So yes, that is a hero. Malcolm X. When you look at the revolution, him not bending over backwards to the white man at that time, and he wouldn't do it today. But he saw some things in us as far as strength, especially in numbers, and he brought that out. So they were trying to put on him that he was, teaching violence. So you know how somebody get in an argument and they try to throw you off, and that's basically what they was trying to do. But he was steadfast in what he believed. So yes, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, yes, civil rights movement, a strong movement. People have tried to, even black people have tried to find, well, basically just find negative stuff. It's kind of like LeBron James. LeBron James, and technically history, it's 7:38 my time here in Memphis, Tennessee. 7:37 was history. That's gone. Can't get that back. That's technically history. LeBron James made history last night by becoming the number one point scorer in the NBA. He has the most number of points ever held by an NBA player. And people have found a way to bash that dude. Us, not white people, us. I'm not trying to go back to last week, but that's what we've done. Um, LeBron James made history, y'all. But there are some things, man, that I wasn't aware of. Going back to the potato chip, George Crumb, and it's crazy. His last name is Crumb, but black guy. He was working as a chef in a resort in New York, and a customer sent his dish of French fries, back to the kitchen. They were claiming that they weren't good, and him in an irritated fit, Crumb cut the potatoes, cut them as thinly as possible, and he fried them until they were burnt chips, and threw a generous handful of salt on top. Thus was born the potato chip. And I did not know that story behind potato chips. I mean, we just eat them, but this was actually something that came about from a black man. The gas mask, Garrett Morgan, he developed what he called the safety hood after noticing how many firefighters were killed by smoke on the job. Now, I've never wanted to down anything I speak about. This live, my podcast, you hear me make statements like it may be boring to you. I'm gonna quit doing that. I don't think I'm a boring person. I don't think what's being discussed is boring. Some people may find it, but if you think about it, These are things that Black people were coming up with back then, especially. Now we can say, hey, racism never left. I would agree with you. But I think we can agree. We're seeing what was really going on in like the 40s, the 50s, the 60s with the police. Um, we've been seeing it in politics. But back then, it was really in the open. I'm not saying it's not in the open now, but it was really in the open back then. And they were coming up with inventions back then. But look how important this is, man. You can just look at it like, okay, gas mask. Now I got other things to do. But think about it. Firefighters were getting killed. A Black man came up with that. Garrett Morgan. The blood bank. Charles Richard Jew became interested in researching the preservation of blood when he was studying at Columbia University. Wow. And he discovered a method of separating red blood cells from plasma and then storing the two components separately. This process allowed blood to be stored for more than a week, which was the maximum at that time. Drew documented these findings in a paper that led to the first blood bank. May not seem much to a lot of people, but I'm going somewhere with this, so just stick with me. Trust me, I'm making a point. Sarah Boone, improving the ironing board. She was the first Black woman in U.S. history to receive a patent. One of the first, I'm sorry. So before we even get to the ironing board, Sarah Boone, one of the first Black women in U.S. history to receive a patent. No, it's not Martin Luther King. No, it's not Harriet Tubman. No, it's not Rosa Parks. And that is no shade to any of the Rosa Parks in that time refusing to give her seat up. And us as Black people, we done found a way to criticize that. But what I've also found out is that some people will give up their seats now. They talk bad behind the scenes and talk tough, but sit in her era and let's see what you would do. I'm not saying you wouldn't, but I'm just saying this wasn't Germantown, Tennessee, Germantown, Memphis, in the Memphis area. No, this wasn't Bartlett. You have to understand, man, they were lynching people back then still. So anyway, we're gonna keep moving. But again, I'm making a point. Just stick with me. The home security system. African-American nurse Mary Van Britton Brown. Now, with a name like that, I don't care how Black you are, you can't be broke. You cannot go around Mary Van Britton. Anything with Van in your name, you got to have some money. So she was meant to be successful. She devised an early security unit for her own home. She and her husband took out a patent for the system in the same year, and they were awarded the patent 3 years later in 1969. Home security systems commonly used today took various elements from her design. I'm going somewhere with this, so just stick with me. 3-light traffic light. Garrett Morgan. We discussed him earlier with the gas mask. Bright individual. He was the first Black person in Cleveland, Ohio to own a car. After he witnessed a severe car accident at an intersection in the city, he expanded on the current traffic light by adding a yield component, the yellow light, that's warning oncoming drivers of an impending stop. Black man. Refrigerated trucks, we've all seen them. That like for instance, the Whole Foods, Tyson Foods. Frederick McKinley Jones created a roof-mounted cooling system that was used to refrigerate goods on trucks during extended transportation in the mid-1930s. He received a patent for his invention in 1940 and co-founded the U.S. Thermal Control Company, later known as Thermo King, in the 1930s. Automatic elevator doors. Alexander Miles took out a patent in 1887 for a mechanism that automatically opens and closes elevator shaft doors. His designs are largely reflected in elevators used today. A Black man. I'm gonna pause right there for just a second. So why did I bring up those figures? Instead of bringing up the Marcus Garvey. So let's talk about Marcus Garvey, but I'm gonna get back to my point. Marcus Garvey, um, he's most he was born, let me see, he was born in what part of Jamaica? Um, he was born in St. Ann's Bay, Jamaica in 1887. He later on died, 1940. But his most famous economic venture was a shipping company known as the Black Star Line, a counterpart to a white-owned company called the White Star Line. Dude, here's the thing that makes me proud, man. Nowadays, we'll say things like, man, if I was born back then, I wouldn't go. I wouldn't be going. They just have to hang me. They just have to shoot me. That a couple of these people I've already spoken about, they weren't going. There's nothing new under the sun, people. Some of these people were not going. Some of these people was serious. I mean, like, nah, I'm not beneath anybody. So anyway, we're gonna keep going, man. I'm gonna make my point. Marcus Garvey, his most famous economic venture, again, was a shipping company known as the Black Star Line, a counterpart to a white-owned company called the White Star Line. Garvey started the shipping company in 1919 as a way to promote trade. But get this, but also to transport passengers to Africa. Wow. Wow. You talking about bold 1919. 40 years a slave, y'all. I watched this movie, and it may have been, I'm just thinking now, that must have been a remake that guy did. But there was a African prince, Abdul Rahman, Ibrahim. He was an African prince. I mean, and this was a very prestigious province where he came from. And they captured him and enslaved him. And they brought him to Mississippi. And this man was a slave for 40 years. They brought him to Natchez, Mississippi. But anyway, and I hope I'm not speaking too much on what happened, but you can read about it. But that's one of the first people that I've ever heard of that was a slave, and he went back to Africa. He made it back to Africa. Yeah, it took 40 years, but you just have to look at that story to see how he was freed, man. So yeah, these are people that some of these people I'm mentioning you probably have never heard of. And when you hear Black history, you think about the people's names that are out there. Again, the Martin Luther Kings, the Malcolm X's, Marcus Garvey's. You think about things like that. But also included in that, man, you got people that's doing it, man, that have done it, that has gotten no recognition. Again, Alexander Miles, the automatic elevator doors. If you look at the gas mask with Garrett Morgan, you look at the traffic light, Garrett Morgan, you just look at some of the things that you're looking around at today. And these things were invented by people in the early 1900s. And some of them, earlier than that. So why did I go there and bring up these people? Because in our culture, I'm guilty of it. For most Black athlete fathers, when you first have a child, most of the time you want their firstborn to be a boy. You just want them to be a boy. Nothing against your daughters. My daughter, I'm crazy about. I'm crazy about all my children. But you want that boy. You want that basketball team. I started out saying I wanted 5 sons. I wanted a starting 5. But either way, guilty. Not saying it's wrong, but just a limited mindset. Because I played basketball, I wanted my sons to do it. And It seems like that's all we look at. It seems like that's as far as our mind goes. Black males have got to either be an athlete or a rapper. If there's nothing else out, within that realm, is like we're lost, especially this generation. Ask you a question. How many people, young people right now, are you hearing that say they want to be a doctor? They want to be an attorney. They want to be a dentist. They want to be a firefighter. When I grow up, I want to be a police officer. Everybody want to be viral. They want to do something that goes viral, in other words. Social media, I'm not blaming social media itself, but we have allowed social media to become the parent, the God, the brother, the big sister. That's where they go for advice. That's where they go to learn about society. I'm glad I came up in the era that I did, man, because we had to open up paperback books and, those hard cardboard books. We had to literally tote those books. We had to have backpacks and stuff like we didn't have. I'm not saying anything is wrong with that, with what they got going now. I'm just saying, who do you hear talking about really a future outside of rapping and sports or making it big on the internet? That's all we have. That's all they think they have, rather. But you look at these people back in the day, man. They were productive. I said all that to say this. I hope that somebody's child watch my children, your children. Maybe you are young enough to watch it, you're a young adult. But I want you to know, man, we're deeper than just basketball. We're deeper than just rapping. We're deeper than just twerking and getting a lot of likes and getting paid by the internet, by YouTube and Instagram and OnlyFans and all. We're deeper than that. These people, man, and trust me, some of them made good money. I'm gonna bring up this one person, this one other person. I'm gonna jump off. There was a person, Stagecoach Mary. This is interesting, man. These are people I've just never heard about, man. Because we just talk about people like when I was in school, we just talked about just those well-known figures. But this person, man, now let me see. She was born, man, this is an interesting story. Now, Stagecoach Mary, she was born around 1832. She was born into slavery. Now, back then, they didn't keep records of their age and all of that. They were just numbers. So they didn't keep record of their age. Stagecoach Mary, man, was well, I'm getting ahead of myself. She was born into slavery. And like other enslaved people, like I said, they didn't know their exact date that they were born. They pinpointed her to be born around Hickman. Was it Hickman County? Yeah, Hickman County, Tennessee. So she became freed after the Civil War. So many people headed up north, up the Mississippi River. And she found work, working as a servant and a laundress, for families along the way. So she ended up in Ohio. And I'm reading as I go, just kind of paraphrasing because I read this, man. It's just, it's a trip to me, man. I mean, in a good way. But I want you to hear the first part. She was born into slavery. She was born a slave. When she became free, she went up north, landed in Ohio. And she it's not clear how she discovered this organization. It was called the Ursuline Convent of the Sacred Heart in Toledo, Ohio. It was a religious community, and it's still there today. So, but they were real serene and disciplined. So she worked as a groundskeeper there, and she was one that was known for cursing, drinking, and check this out, y'all, for gunfights. She'll shoot. And if she's known for gunfights, I'm pretty sure she dropped a few people in her life because she was still walking around. I'm gonna kind of jump ahead. She didn't die. I think she died later on due to illness, so nobody killed her. So she was known for those three things. So she had a bad temper, man, bad temper. And mind you, she was born around 1832. Slave, bad temper. Again, some people weren't going, man. Um, they um it would her style, her personality, and this convent, two different things. It just didn't mesh. They were quiet and disciplined. She was this loud, cussing black woman who was known for shooting guns, and I'm pretty sure people, and cussing and drinking. She was a heavy drinker. But anyway, they one of the nuns asked her how was her journey to Toledo, and it was reportedly she told them, quote unquote, "I'm ready for a good cigar and a drink." Um, So the nuns, they complained about her temper and said she had a difficult nature, but she did make one friend, and that was actually the founder of that convent. Her name was, let me see, Mother Mary Amadeus Dunn. But anyway, um, she didn't like for people after she was a groundskeeper, so you didn't walk on her grass, even though it didn't belong to her. But she was very strict about her work. So you got somebody that's keeping the grounds and making the yard pretty and the landscaping pretty, and here you come walking on it. She wasn't going, and it came to an end when her and a male janitor pointed guns at each other, so they got rid of her. There was just too much. That was the last straw. So she found work, doing odds and end jobs. So um, her bad temper ended up paying off. She ended up getting a contract with the Postal Service as it was a mail carrier, but it was a star route mail carrier. Her job was to protect the mail from bandits because they stole stuff like that, bandits and robbers, and she was known to get them. So you wouldn't go walk up on Stagecoach Mary playing games. She didn't play. She totaled a rifle and a pistol. Um, Interesting story, man. So um, even though she had a bad reputation, I guess people respected that because even when she fell ill, man, the same people that she probably cussed out, they came to her aid. They was taking care of her, man, gave her free food, free rooms, and stuff like that. So they took care of her until she died. So somebody may ask, what in the world does that have to do with Black history? If you look back at what I said, Stagecoach Mary was born a slave. Stagecoach Mary was one of the first female carriers, but the first Black female mail carrier in U.S. history. So again, she's not a Marcus Garvey to some. She's not a Martin Luther King to some. But if you look at it, what caught my attention, she was born into slavery, a former slave. And she got a contract with the Postal Service. I'm saying, so I said all of that to say this because I said I'm jumping off early, man. I don't see many people on anyway, so I'm gonna jump off early. What is stopping us? Before I get to that, the movie Emancipation. That's a must watch, y'all. Please watch it. Please watch it. If you can, watch it. A little gory, watch it though. It's not too bad. Slave named Peter. All of us remember that picture where the Black man was sitting and he had the big whips on his back. The white people, and they were supposedly good white people, they wanted to show the world the true side of slavery. So that's why they took that pic. And I'm not going to tell you the movie, but that pic has gone around for centuries. And that was a touching story, man. It was based on a true story. But again, when you got somebody who's born into slavery, they refuse to remain a slave, man. I'm touched by that. And here I am. I've never been whipped by a white man. I've never been raped, never been abused by white. None of them ever spit in my face. Because of my dad and my mom, man, I was raised to be a man. And I was raised to look people in their eye. And that's why I'm always trying to make eye contact with the camera. I want to make sure I'm making eye contact because that's what I'm used to. But you didn't do that back then. But my dad, who was born in 1948, and my mom in 51, just wasn't the type to do that, man. You had to respect them too. They weren't the type to go around trying to be tough and scare people and act bad. Me, got that same personality. You look at me in the eye, make them respect you like you respect them, regardless of the color. But I'm looking at too, what is stopping me, or what has stopped me? When these people were born into slavery, they were once beaten, once raped, their families taken away from them. You can imagine having a baby, and as soon as you have the baby, it's taken out of your arms and sold off. You never see your child again. You don't even know what they look like growing up. And it's crazy because a lot of times back then, well, in that time, age didn't mean nothing. It was nothing for a white man to look at a black girl and say, "Oh, you grown up now." If she's got a little height on her, that girl could probably be 11, 12 years old. It was time to break her in. And, you know, age didn't mean nothing back then. So there were some young black females that, found some of the older males attractive. You never know. They could have been your uncle or your dad. It's just, it was just messed up back then. And they made it through all of that stuff, man. And some of them owned land. Some of them had patents, the cotton gin and things of that nature, man. I'm just saying, Eli Whitney, it's just, you look at Harriet Tubman with her fight and her tenacity, man. And it's just, it never ceased to amaze me, the things that they went through, and they still became successful in the end. And here I am. Maybe I can't say anything about you, but here I am. I have looked, man, my whole adult life, man. When I saw the basketball thing wasn't going to go anywhere, I was lost. And it's like, what am I going to do? And I whine and I complain, whine and complain. I talk about how the U.S. let the immigrants, basically people from other countries, come in and they can get gas stations, they can get loans. But I see other black people that are successful in business, and I'm saying, I can't keep blaming that. So what's going on? What is stopping us? Why is it that you got former slaves that own the same land that they got beaten, raped on? How did they do it? What was their tenacity? What was Harriet Tubman's mindset to say, man, I'm not gonna be a slave no more. Not only am I just thinking about me? No, I ain't thinking about me only. I'm coming back to save some of y'all. I'm gonna rescue y'all, but you got to help me. And what put our life on the line? Toting a pistol, man. Do you know what's all in the swamp? Man, forget the alligator. We already know it's alligators, crocodiles, and things of that nature. We already know, man. You got slave catchers. We already know the swamp. Man, they didn't have good doctors back then. Not like now. I'm not saying that, but let me rephrase that. We're more advanced now. Man, certain mosquitoes bite you, you gone. You got certain things out there in that water, man, all that fungus and algae that will kill you, especially if you got an open wound. How many slaves do you think did not have an open wound from getting beat, getting hit, punched on? Man, listen, I just don't think we have any excuse, man. Just looking at some of the black pioneers before our time that invented things. I know Thomas Edison gets credit for the light bulb, and I'm looking up at one now. But the guy who made the firmament for the light bulb. Now, Thomas Edison, he just basically, he modified it in so many words, but he wasn't the original inventor. I know we say that George Washington was the first U.S. president. However you want to put it on paper, but from what I understand, there was a black president. I don't know if he was a Confederate, but there was a black president before George Washington. So I'm saying we are more than just, nothing wrong with the NBA. I love the NBA. Nothing wrong with rappers, man. If they're talking about the right thing. I love the craft of putting words together that rhyme and making it make sense. And you put that to a beat. I don't see nothing standardly wrong with that, standard wise. So no, I'm not putting it down, but I'm just saying, I went through all of this prior to now just to tell you, man, we're more than just rappers and athletes. Man, it was some smart people that came from our ancestry, man. Very, very wise people. Please, black people, understand that you got a brain. You don't have to always give the other races credit for being smarter than us. We need to quit doing that. Man, I came up hearing how China was so much more advanced and they're so much smarter. No, they're not. Do you know what's going on in the US right now? I grew up and there were times where if I didn't have nothing else to watch, sad to say, I would watch the Knowledge Bowl. I think it came on Channel 3 on Saturday mornings. Man, sometimes the US was tearing Japan and China. Man, they was tearing those people up. Man, the US ain't no joke, man. We ain't no slaw. Black people. The US was built by us, y'all. We're more than what y'all see. I know the internet paints a picture. OnlyFans, you got females and males. From what I understand, they got OnlyFans pages. That's what they do. That's what they do. And that's all we know. I heard a female some years back say that she wants to get on. During 30 years old at the time. And she was talking about, I need to do something to go viral. Not nothing to start her own business. Everything is equated and related to the internet. Going viral, making it huge. We just limit ourselves like that, man. Look at what these people went through. Some of these people freed themselves before the emancipation. They had to go through hell, man. I don't care how we want to try to compare the times. We're not living in times like back then. I don't care who says it. I don't care who says it. You're not going in every town in Mississippi seeing somebody hung by their neck. We're not seeing that today. I'm sorry. I'm not saying we don't see it. I'm not saying it don't happen, but it's not as regular. Yes, we've had some people to get their brains blown out by the police. Yes, we've had police brutality. Not knocking that. I'm not downplaying it. But you want to try to compare today to the 1960s? Stop it. To the 1940s? Stop it. To the 1860s? Stop it. Stop it, man. I've never been to jail, thank God. Thank God. Back then, everybody was in a jail. They were slaves. You couldn't go nowhere. You had a life sentence. You were born into it, you would die in it. Unless you freed yourself. Or the emancipation, you live long enough for the emancipation, and they were still slaves. They got treated bad, man. What's our excuse? Just trying to find out what's our excuse. And I'm talking to me. If you're not, I'm just letting you hear me talk to myself. What's our excuse? What's up, Clem? I mean, why? Why don't you own 40 acres right now? Why? Why wait on the government to give us 40 acres and a mule? But the slaves, the former slaves, they were able to buy it and purchase. How? Maybe that's not making sense to you all, but it makes a lot of sense to me, man. Cornita. Hey, Cornita, I didn't even know you on. I'm sorry. Exactly. She said, the will to conquer. Now, if we stand together as a culture, we will be absolutely amazing. That is the fear, and you're right, 100% right, Cornita. That is the fear of certain white people, a lot of white people. That's the fear of certain Jewish communities. That's the fear of everybody that's not Black. They don't want us to come together. Now, I won't say Hispanic because a lot of Hispanics, they treat it just like we are. And a lot of them were banned with us. But what they look at with us, Cornita, and anybody else that's watching, all 1.5 of y'all, hey, they tell the truth about us, man. Y'all just not together. The guy, I hate to bring him up, but that Ezekiel guy that went and wreaked havoc on Memphis, last year, just going around shooting people, high as a kite. It was sad to find out that he sat and ate with his best friend and walked outside in the same setting and blew his brains out. It was just sad. What us? Oh, but Cornita. Now, people like me and you got sense. I ain't saying nobody else do. But what I just said, I guarantee you, they may not say it to my face, but I'll be called a coon for it. And, hey, it's amazing, Cornita, how, and anybody that's watching, it's amazing how we as Black people, when we raise our children and we spank them or we discipline them, however way, whatever form or fashion, we discipline them for doing wrong. I thought about that, and I'm saying they're black. We tell them they're wrong, but it's something about society that when a black person does wrong and gets disciplined, we better not speak on that. We're Coons and we're Uncle Toms. If I go out, if I go out and for no reason at all, I just decide to steal something from the mall, just foolishly steal something from the mall. Now I got the opportunity to work and get my money and buy my own chain or whatever. I just go and decide to steal some jewelry. Well, the police catch me out of everybody. I'm not saying, I'm not talking about Tyree Nichols. I'm not talking about anybody before this conversation. I'm not talking about anybody because I'm not going to be the first one to talk. I'm not one of those that jumps on the bandwagon as far as that comply stuff all the time. Sometimes, a lot of times well, let me say it like this. We make it sound bad if we ask a question. If you pulling me out of my car, I got a right to ask you what's going on. And you haven't even asked for my license and registration. What are you talking about comply? But I'm saying some of the foolish stuff we do now, I'm not talking about the people that are innocent, like Tyree Nichols. What was the other guy that got choked? That couldn't breathe. I'm not talking about people like that because he's selling cigarettes. I'm talking about that. So do not try to mix up anything. Do not look at this video and say, I'm one of those dudes that talking about Eric Garner and all them should have complied. No. You got a right to ask why are you physically putting your hands on me? Don't talk about be quiet. Now, if you choose to be quiet, be quiet. I'm saying if you go out and do something foolish, you break the law for no reason at all. I ain't talking about you so poor you got to feed your family, you take a chance on stealing meat. I ain't talking about that. I feel for people who are in that predicament. But sometimes black people, we do ignorant stuff and don't want to be called on it. But you do your children like that, though. Society get away with it. If you say something, you a coon. The police say, come here, man. I saw you take that. We got you on tape. We saw you. Just stop. And you hit the police or you fight. Nothing's supposed to be done. I'm not saying they're supposed to take your life. Nothing's supposed to be done. I'm saying, wise up. Look at these people that I named before, man. Look at these people I talked about before I even made that statement. So I don't want y'all to take nothing out of context. I'm just talking about sometimes if we're in the wrong, if we know we're in the wrong, if we know we're in the wrong. I'm not talking about giving the police a right to beat our brains out, man. I can't stand that. Well, don't get me mixed up. No. But I'm saying, look at what these people went through. Not stealing nothing, man. They're not sleeping with their partner's wives. They're not molesting their nieces and nephews. I'm talking about the people who were literally slaves, people who weren't even slaves, but born in the time of I'm talking about real racism. I'm talking about when there was no justice ever. Somebody could steal something in 1920 Mississippi, 1940 Mississippi, somewhere in Mississippi, Tennessee, Louisiana, Alabama. Could know it's a white man and just see a black man walk and say it was him. He gone. Now we got a right to an attorney. I'm not saying that all cases work in our favor, but I'm saying look at what these people went through and they got patents. They invented things. They own land. They got businesses. I'm saying, where are we falling? Where is the disconnect? Successful businesses. There's a disconnect. But Black history, man, is deeper than what we've been taught, man. T-Pat, what's going on? Cornita said, when in the wrong, accept the consequence, and people need to stop co-signing for their so-called friends. I wish they would, Cornita. I really wish they would, man. I do. Now, you know what? We weren't born in slavery. I went to school with y'all. So y'all know we was born in the 1970s, 80s. I'm just inclined to believe, y'all, that back then, and I'm using slavery as an example, that back then people, when you met people that were together, once they got together, I believe they were together. And yes, nobody's ever told me, but I'll be willing to bet that there was some black people that had to kill some other black people because they knew that their mindset was fully, they had became engulfed in slavery. I ain't going with y'all. Y'all can run. And I'm telling Massa, they knew, well, shoot, we got to get rid of this one. Call me. I'm not, it's not funny, but call me what you want to call me, but I'm not saying killing is right, but I understand. I believe it was some people, man, when they band together, they band together. And I'm making a point to what Cornelius said. They were together, man, regardless. They had secret codes where they can sing and whistle a certain tune, and they were talking like that. And I believe that there were times to whereas if your friend that you bonded with, blood covenant, see, that was real huge back in the Bible days, but your friend that you bonded with, when you see them get out of line, hey, man, we don't do that, man. Can you imagine some of the trouble some of us would not have gotten in if we just had real friends? If you were a real friend and you see your friend doing something that was not constitutional to what y'all supposed to be doing, hey, man, stop, bro. Sis, stop. Now, I'm not going to call you no bad B. No, sis, stop. What you doing, you get caught. Look, you on your own, but I'm trying to give you a warning before destruction. Stop. Back then, y'all, God knew when to birth me. I ain't talking about because I would have been the baddest thing on earth. I'm just saying, I just don't know if I could have took that, as far as constantly getting hit. I don't know. I just didn't want to find out, in other words. I'm glad I was born in 75. There was a time where I didn't even want to rock the gray. Man, I'm so grateful to be my age now. I just wish, y'all, that we had that. I'm talking about me, especially me, that we had that about us to say, hey, this is my last year working for somebody else. Hey, man, this is the last week I'm going to sit on my tail and not try to get a job and help mom out or help my wife or help my. If I were to ask, and I know I would take somebody off asking this, and again, I didn't even think I was going to be on this long because I think I had like 3.5 people. But if I were to ask, with those people that I mentioned that left legacies, if let's say the world were to end today, you in heaven, because I'm speaking positive, what type of legacy would you leave? If let's say your world ended, but let's say your life ended, mine ended. If they read about you, what would they read? If they read about me, what type of movement did I start? I'm not talking about civil rights and all that. I mean, and I'm not downing it. I'm not making light of it. I was saying it's not possible. But what mark did I leave? Did you leave? If you were to leave today, what mark did you leave? That could help the youth. That could help Black, people to say, okay, this person, Clint, was a part of Black history. I mean, if you think about it, it's a deep question, man. I know this is different. But Black history is deeper than just February. It's deeper than just 28 days in a month every year. If you look at some of the stuff these people had to go through to get these patents and, to get these ideas out there to change the world, man, they did it in spite of. But we've gotten cute. We got laptops, we got the iPhone, we got smart watches, man, we got the lights, we got nice vehicles that literally drive themselves. Now they park themselves. Ain't nothing wrong with none of that. Nothing wrong with it. I'm just saying, if it was your time to go today, what could people read about me that could help and say, man, this woman was a part of Black history? Maybe it's time for us to do something. Maybe it's time for us to step out there. At least do something positive, whether it's job, whether it's career, whether it's entrepreneurship. Every time I see De'Ara go, I'm proud. Every time I see a post, a video from T-Pat saying another proud, that's where I got that from. I got that from her. Another proud customer. I started doing that with insurance. I got that from her. When you look at, even when you look at Cornita and some of the women, I was reading about one of these Black people, their mother left them. Their mother left them at a young age. I know that's shocking. Mama left. And the daddy struggled to raise them. Not saying he didn't raise them, he just struggled. He was by himself. The mama left. Cornita ain't left her children. I'm just saying, what mark are you gonna leave? I'll leave that with y'all, man. I'm gonna see if we got any comments. Whether people don't like it or not, the weakest link had to be removed. Yeah. I promise you, because if I'm even on certain jobs, if you're a representative or if you worked on the line, a lot of times wherever you worked, y'all band together. If you ever just think about it, if you worked on the line, the assembly line, the assemblers, they kind of band together. They got this union. This camaraderie, this brotherhood, sisterhood, y'all friends, your co-workers. If you're the supervisors, if you notice, they was always after a meeting, they always kind of group together, after the meeting, because hey, they're on that level. But I remember being a supervisor, and there was some we just couldn't trust because I hate to say this, man, but it's the truth. Some of them were white, a lot of them were white, and a couple of them were Black. They were just known to lean an ear, get some information, and run back and tell management. So when they came around, we stopped talking, and they noticed that. And that started a wildfire. That started some havoc, and I didn't care, man. Like, if I'm telling you some personal issues I'm having because you my best friend or you a friend, and here come a Joe Blow or a Nancy walking up, and I know they known for running their mouth and snitching and trying to move up and step on folks' neck to get ahead, man, I would stop talking. I don't care how you felt about it. Imagine how I feel when you telling my business. So look, I was having a conversation with De'Ara one time, and we was just talking. I said, man, if it comes down between me and another person of being ticked off, you may as well be the one ticked off. You ain't finna tick me off, man. I'm gonna enjoy my day. You can be mad, but yeah, the weakest link got to go. Now nobody got killed, but hey, we killed relationships. Man, if you a snitch, you don't need to be in my circle. I remember a time, man, people. It's one particular incident. I never told you about this. Sometimes I don't tell my wife things. Sometimes I don't tell people things because I have. Now she won't. She don't do it. But in times past, when I say certain things, people look at me with this eye like, "You think you tough?" Man, listen. I do remember one time, man. It was a group of us somewhere, not doing anything wrong. We weren't on no tough stuff. And somebody wanted to start with a couple of dudes that was with us. Now, me, if I know you, we talk. If I don't know you, I'm quiet. And I remember they squashed it. I mean, it was squashed like, I ain't gonna say immediately, but they had their words and they got it resolved. Everything was good. Everybody shook hands, gave that brother. And I remember this dude making a statement. He said, I wasn't worried about you. I was worried about big dude that's quiet. That man ain't said a word. If anybody, I'm worried about him. He was talking about me. And I don't know why everybody called me big dude. I don't know if I just had in my head big or what. But anyway, that's just how I was, man. If I didn't know you, I was quiet because I done been burnt before by people, my own folk. And that's why, I'm the one that, Clint speaks, the one that speaks, that people have had an issue with, because of some of the things that I have not done. I don't know you. I'm not going to talk. You're not gonna get in my business. I mean, I'll let you talk, and I'm not gonna. That's your business to spread, not mine. I'm not known for spreading people's business, and I'm not known for spreading my own. But the De'Ara Whites and the French Jacksons and the Robert Humphreys and the Corey those people I would talk to. But Monica Pilots, people like that. But Cornita, man, if you wasn't just a part of that, man, you just wasn't a part of that. If I ain't trust you, I ain't trust you. We do that too much too. But anyway, y'all, I'm gonna let y'all go. I think I held up, all two of y'all too long. So I'm gonna let y'all go. Y'all enjoy the rest of your Wednesday and the rest of your week. And hey, this is Clint Speaks, y'all, and we're out.